Ta-da! Hey, it all worked out fine. Welcome, welcome.
Woo. Welcome. Hi, guys.
How you going, Wendy? Great to have you here. Andy, good to see
Thank
your
you.
smiling face again.
Good to see you, mate.
Cheers.
Yes,
Cheers.
indeed. Quick intros as we kick off. Welcome to another Friday for Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, folks. Those who are dialing in, we're trying some cool bits of technology. So it all went to plan this time. So we're not going to try and do anything too fancy from here on. We're just going to have a chat with our wonderful, lovely guest, Wendy, and she has sponsored the show for the last few weeks with some lovely wines. And Andy and I have attempted to talk about them. Probably not as good as Wendy can. So we will have a bit of a chat to Wendy in a while. And welcome to the show, mate. And it's going to be good to have you on as a guest today. Have a bit of a chat about wine, investing, business, the Hunter Valley. It's hot, all sorts of things. So
It's hot. It's real hot.
Yes. So welcome. So what else, Andy? Did I miss anything for kicking off the day?
Well, other than, this is Wealth, Wine and Wisdom. This is our regular Friday catch-up where Jason, expert property investor, 20 plus years. You wouldn't believe it by how few grey hairs he has on that head of his. But what people don't know, or what there is to know about property, Jason knows it. And if he doesn't know it, then it probably isn't worth knowing. And myself, Andy Fenton, advisory services, ex-investment banker, reformed investment banker, come advisor to small to medium business owners in the worlds of banking, stocks, tax, and all of that sort of beautiful structure-y stuff. And where Jason and I debrief on the week that's been. And we've been doing this now ever since COVID started. And thank you all for joining us. We try and share things that we're seeing in a rapidly changing world and provide some insight and have a bit of fun along the way. So, mate, I think that's all we missed for today's intro. So, we usually kick off by doing a bit of around the ground as far as what's been happening out in the world, mate. So, what have you been seeing in the world of property and the craziness that is rapidly declining interest rates and what seems to be an economy that has all of a sudden skipped back into gear a little bit? What's happening in your world, mate?
Well, the world of my world is the announcements in the last week or so about stamp duty. Everyone's getting quite excited about the it's not the abolition of stamp duty, it's the changing of stamp duty, and I think that one's going to be good for the cost of acquiring a property. For most people, by the time you've purchased a property, you've paid about 105% of its cost when you add on stamp duty and other things on top, lender's mortgage insurance, other fees and duties, those sorts of things. So I'm glad to see that thing go as an upfront cost. Like I said last week, Andy, I think I'd still like to see it be eliminated completely because GST was meant to replace stamp duty many years ago and the government reneged on that one. So still a bit cranky about that, but nothing we can do about that one, can we, Wendy?
Nothing at all.
We can stomp around and have a little go. But, some big announcements this week, which are things that we were, again, always saying, Andy, especially in and around Melbourne, that Melbourne would receive significant amounts of incentives on top of the national government incentives and boosts and budget for spending and stimulus. The local Victorian government has come out with some pretty significant projects, tens of billions of dollars of new projects or projects that were slated for 10 years and they've brought them forward, which is great. So
I think it might have been 20. But
yeah, a lot of data.
Well, when they were first tabled was almost 20 years ago.
20 years ago. That's right. Yeah, the tunnel, the high-speed rail, and all of those train line projects around Melbourne are being sped up at this point in time too. So, those things are coming on board. I think Melbourne's going to come back with a vengeance. It's probably going to take 12 or 18 months to get its mojo back on, but the money's going to be invested in that economy. And for me, I think that's going to be pretty good to be a property investor at the right time down there. Also, they announced conversations and talks about getting the students back into Australia. There's a 10 billion plus hole in the universities' income streams in Australia. And again, like both of us said, Andy, the Australian government cannot afford to not have those students back in the economy, and also cannot afford not to have immigration back on. So there's talk about that happening early to mid next year, maybe even sooner, through processes and other things. So, that's really the 3 or 4 big things this week in the world of property, which will really affect the values. Well, this is the joy of live streaming. Eh? I've got an assistant today.
But Dad,
Yes.
I really need your help.
I'm busy right now.
No.
Quite over there. But it's good timing anyway, Andy.
In 2 seconds. Don't worry. That's a classic.
So that's it for me for this week around the grounds, Andy. What about you? I know there's been a few things on your radar.
Mate, it's been good. I think that I last week, sort of tongue-in-cheek, had a poke that there wasn't too much to bitch and moan about because markets have been pretty good, and that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But look, on the student side of the equation, I'm pretty sure that places like the Mad Monkey Beer Garden in Airlie Beach will love the student backpackers coming back into Australia, so they'll be pretty happy with what you've got to say there. But mate, markets have been pretty good. So I'll show you a couple of things that have been quite interesting. And these are really just interesting. You sort of know my thoughts around Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin, 20% down just recently, fell off the edge of a cliff. Our mate here, Antony, was and quite rightly so, was basically on Bloomberg this morning, basically saying, listen, when it goes up by 150%, it's a bubble stock. As soon as it goes down by 20%, then it's junk bonds, and that's pretty much how people look at Bitcoin these days. But the reason why I found that quite interesting is it's on the reverse of, whoops, that's the wrong button, Andy. It's on the reverse of this. So I'm just going to break down the S&P and so the American stock market and the Australian stock market, give you guys a bit of insight. Because last time I spoke a little bit about if we took the tech out of the S&P 500, what would it look like? So S&P 500, for those just tuning in. And by the way, guys, if you've got questions, just whack them in the comments as we go through, because we're testing. We need to see whether these comments are coming through from all channels. So give us a yell, say, yep, hey, in here from Queensland and watching on YouTube, or maybe you're on LinkedIn, wherever you are. It'd be great to know. It'll be good insight for Jason and I, so that we know how to better serve you guys. And really, really happy to answer questions as we go along.
Absolutely.
So the S&P 500, so that's basically the American stock market, the top 500 stocks in the American stock market, and that's really rallied along quite well. And but I always ask the question, where would it be if we took the tech stocks out? Because there's a big difference, and this seems to be the theme of COVID, of the haves and the have-nots. We look at Tesla, boom, 500%. We look at Wells Fargo, significantly down, one of the major banks over there. So did a little bit of research and found from these guys that this is actually the S&P X, the infotech sector. So not necessarily the full box and dice as far as tech goes, but a good portion of it. And as you can see, it's literally just gone into positive territory, now. So this is a really, really interesting sign, We said it for a while. G'day, Paul. Good to see you, mate. Country Victoria, cracking place. One of the best states in Australia, I'd say. And I totally lost track of what I was saying.
Makes me sad.
So it's the markets like that certainty. Biden now starting to get a little bit more of a grip. Trump behaving himself. Trump's really spending his time giving people presidential pardons. We're wondering when he is going to pardon himself. Pardon the pun. So markets are really enjoying this. And I heard a really interesting perspective of one of the best stock investors, and I'll go to another chart in a tick. but one of the top investors in the world. And this was a bit of a different view on things from the Hunter Valley. Eb, from the Hunter Valley, we're drinking wine from that very, very same place. I hear that it's,
she's my social media guru, working from home today.
So his comment was that markets actually really, really enjoy when governments can't do anything. And I pondered that for a tick, and I thought that's a really interesting take, because usually people say, markets don't like the uncertainty, but markets usually like people being able to make decisions. And so we were constantly talking about a Biden or a Trump presidency and which would be better for markets. And it basically said markets actually love it when politicians can't toy around with it. And it reminded me of the great Kerry Packer quote in that, when he said, stop toying with the legislation, people won't work with Australians. And it reminded me of that. And I thought that's a really, really interesting insight, and one that I hadn't heard bandied around a lot, but it makes a lot of sense. And it makes even more sense if you have a look at this, which is the Australian market now. You can see just more recently, it has actually been, quite buoyant. Like, it's really taken on a bit of a kick since the election. And we were at very, very high highs previously at the 4,000. God's own New Zealand. It certainly is God's own. Love the New Zealand, love the Kiwis. And so we've actually bounded along really, really well. As a matter of fact, just before we got into COVID, Malcolm Palmer, who will come on the show at some point in time, and I used to talk that we believed that the fair range was somewhere between 6,000 and 6,800. So it's very much back into that range previous. But here's an interesting thing. That's not the slide I wanted to talk to, is this one. Now, I'll just zoom in a little bit.
Gonna say, Andy, yeah, zoom in. We can't see it. Or I got to put my glasses on, one of the two.
So, well, effectively blue. So on the right axis, over this side, right, we've got the world, we've got North America, we've got Europe, we've got Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and we've got emerging markets. Right, so I'll get rid of that now. And so hot means that it's overpriced, and blue means that it's very, very significantly undervalued. The darker the blue, the more undervalued. So we can see here that, financials still globally, right across the board, reasonably underpriced. Infrastructure that Jason and I have been talking about quite a lot.
Yeah.
Outside of North America, infrastructure still very, very underpriced. Communications. Now, communications might be underpriced for a good reason. And then this is my big one over here, which I think is a bit of a sleeping giant, is the energy sector, right? So the Woodside Petroleums in Australia, the AGLs. Now, these stocks have been underpriced for quite some time, and then our materials sector. So here in Australia, when we think about it, that the financials are making up about 25% of our market, the fact that we're up and those markets are still down along with our energy and materials, it means that other markets have really spurred on and taken place of some of those other, previous market leading stocks in Australia, which is actually a really, really good sign for the economy, because other areas are starting to get some serious traction. And it was about time the financials kind of had a little bit of a bad time, if that makes sense. So I thought this is really, really interesting to understand that what used to be some of the top stocks of yesterday are now the dog stocks today. But mark my word, these stocks will rise. So it's really, really interesting when we come back and we go, okay, well, this is where we sit in Australia at the moment. There is significant potential upside. I'm not saying that it's going to happen right now, but there's sleeping giant, which is the stocks of yesterday. So, mate, that's a little bit of my around the grounds. I thought I'd show this just because it's not often, other than in the Olympics, that Australia really get picked out as one of the top countries in the world. And this is a COVID effect heat map, if you will. And so I just got this from Bloomberg this morning, and it was on their. I watched it far too long. I was a little bit late for work, but so I'll pose this question maybe to you, and you reckon are the top 5 least impacted by COVID countries. Now, least impacted by COVID, there's a couple of measures that go into this. It takes into consideration economic impact, takes into consideration how long we've been, or whether there was hard lockdowns, what the need for lockdowns were, what the trajectory out of the virus period is. If you had a top 5, Wendy, off the top of your head, what would those top 5 be?
Top 5? Well, I'd have to say Australia, New Zealand. After that, I don't know. I don't know. South Africa. I haven't heard much from over there, but then I get lost. I'm not sure. I've heard a lot about
probably
Europe.
a couple over in Africa that have been there. What about you've got one? You've got one. What about you, Jake? What do you reckon?
I reckon New Zealand as well. I reckon those guys have been quite isolated, which is good. But I reckon somewhere like Switzerland or Sweden or something like that. A couple of those European countries. But it's a good question.
What do you reckon, everyone? Whack it in the chat box. What is your
who are the
top
least
2?
affected?
Who are the least affected by COVID? Actually had COVID, all right, and they need to be developed world countries, right? So have a ponder of that for a couple of moments, and we'll see what comes through.
COVID app really quickly.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll jump on Google.
So I'll give you the top 5, and I'll see if I can remember them in order. Number 1, least affected, was Finland. Finland had very little impact in general around. Very little economic impact, very little street impact, as they call it. So the streets were still safe. People were still mobilising around. They may have a lockdown, but economically they've survived extraordinarily well. Korea was number 2. And so Korea was hit pretty heavy by way of numbers initially, but they were already prepared. Yeah. Oh, so, yeah. South Korea. I think North Korea might be a little bit. Yeah, we don't talk about them. Nice one, David Lee. South Korea, good one. And they were prepared. They've been through this before. So they acted very, very, very quickly. The others that were in there was Japan, which was another surprise. And this goes against those people who say that big cities are no more. And there are a lot of people that are saying this. And like we've said previously, you can't balk 2,000 years worth of evolution of people coming together.
But also too, Andy, you can't just pick up infrastructure that's been built for the last however many hundreds of years and move it somewhere else. Like, hospitals, train lines, universities, schools, cities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't just pick the infrastructure up and leave. And I said this the other day in Real Estate Game. Yes, some of the country towns are getting a little bit of a moment in the sunshine. Now, listen, I grew up in a small town, a country town. I couldn't wait to leave. You wait. You give yourself 6 months or 12 months at a country town, city people, you'll be leaving. I'm telling you right now.
No, we're loving it here in the Hunter Valley. We're loving it. But I don't think we're a small country town. We're pretty...
No, I reckon the Hunter Valley is a good location. I used to talk about real estate investing. I used to call it soy economics 10, 12 years ago, where if you go to a country town and you can get a good soy cappuccino, then, and the prices are still good, then get in, because...
Invest now.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I tell you, look, we do a little bit of property as well, and I can tell you the returns in Cessnock are better than the returns I get in Sydney.
Yes, yeah, the yields are great up that way. Yeah,
yeah.
And I do know that there's not a lot of supply either, and a lot of people want to rent and move there, and there's a lot of jobs in that sort of corridor up that way as well. So it's certainly getting a
40 minutes to the beach. It's got everything.
Totally.
It's got everything.
Yeah.
The Hunter Valley, it's got everything. So it leads into a bit of a question, because one of our themes, Wendy, of recent has been because markets have been quite turbulent, interest rates have been really low. So I've done a bit of investing behind the scenes, And I'll throw it to the two of you. If we're talking about yield, and there's a great play on words here, and we're talking about real assets, and this, I'm seriously thinking about getting the person onto Wine and Wisdom to brief us on this. What do you think one of the most successful asset classes through COVID has been?
You're talking like
COVID.
my question is yield. This is where the play on words yield, Andy. Is it actually an income stream or is it how is the yield measured here? I think there's a trick question in this one.
Quality, and so let me show you a stock, and we're not necessarily talking about this period of time right now. I don't have the date right now, although I know it is as good as it's ever been. But it's certainly down Wendy's line. I'm going to use this as a segue to introduce you, Wendy, into the show. So it should give everybody a little bit of context. But one of the best performing asset classes in the world throughout COVID has actually been 200%, so 30 to 36% per annum yield.
Zoom in, man. Zoom in, bro.
On one of my favorites, which is Lafitte, which is this one is the second growth of one of the major wines in the Bordeaux, and we can see here a vintage map.
Wow.
It's a thing. Entrepreneur buying is when people buy wines before they're released, right? Mm-hmm. You sort of know what the season's like, so you invest in the wine. And as we can see here, we've got the green, which was a 2014 vintage, which is released in 2015, sometimes 2016. And then we've got the 15 and 16. So the 5-year yield from the 16 is actually right now, right? So, or 2019 it was. So we can see here that we're average. So 2016 vintage, if you don't mind, 58% up in 2 years. We've got 2015 vintage, which was 119% up over 3 years, and a whopping 204% increase on Lafitte red wine, ladies and gentlemen. So this is around about 3,000 quid, 3,000 pounds per case when you buy it before it was made.
Yeah.
And so thank you to the guys from Cult Wine who I've been researching. Yeah, right. And well, so here's the thing, is that markets love scarcity. And Jason and I were just talking about this the other day. Jason knows somebody who has a $200,000 collection of Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
It's just insane, but it's scarcity, right? So with wine, it's always a scarce product. Every year is unique. Every year has a limited supply, right? And then when people really, really like that yield, because sometimes the great years don't yield that much fruit as well. So you can have a great year, but not much wine. So in thinking about how we'd introduce you, Wendy, from a business perspective and from a finance perspective, I've been studying wine indexes for quite a few years, but probably ever since I started drinking them. And that's been a couple of years. So when I think about wineries, when I think about owning one, when I think about putting heart and soul and passion into it, I think, well, my business has about 90-day cash flow conversion cycles. So from point of time when we start spending money on things, about 90 days or give or take, that's roughly when the cash flow start to come in. And for us, sometimes that's quite a long period of time. But then I look at your industry and I go, holy smoke. You guys will sometimes have a conversion cycle of 1 to 2 years, especially if you're going to barrel it and you're
even more. Even more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and some of your wines, right, which we sent through, which are incredible. Yeah. And
we'll put them in barrel for 22, 24 months, up to 24 months, which is quite a long time. Then we'll sit it. We may not release for another 12 months, depending on is what's happening. So that's from time. So you're really trying to have to predict what's going to happen in 3 years' time, and we're really going through that a lot at the moment. And this year we went into the financial year 50% down on intake with smoke, taint, and fires and everything. So 50% down, and yet we've increased a huge influx in people appreciating the value of really fine wines. So people aren't interested in our quaffers anymore. They want the premium quality handcrafted wines. So huge intake, huge increase in appreciation and sales in those areas, which has just been amazing. But yeah, now we're in the position of really trying to predict how much can we take in, how much, what can we get access to, because we are multi-regional, so we buy from different regions, but it depends on, there's only so much you can do because it would depend on the vintage, the year. Yeah, there's so many variables. So like last year, who would know that we're going to end up being 50% down in production? You can't predict those type of things. Yet, I mean, we've been okay because we've had back vintages to carry us through, but we're selling out. And people like you, Andy, are saying, I don't want the 2018. Give me your 2009. Give me your 2013. So we've had a huge increase in that. And that's sitting on wines in our cellar for 10 years.
Yeah. How do you choose that, Wendy? From your point of view as a business, and also too, you say, well, let's get some out the door to get cash flow, but we'll keep some in the cellar because there's value. So how do you guys go about choosing it? I think that's fascinating.
Well, if it's a good vintage, number one, okay. If you know it's a good vintage, like our 2018 vintage, Alessandro release was all single vineyard wines. So superb vintage. So they were single vineyard. So those ones we know we're going to put away. So we just straight away go into it going, these are premium. You can taste it in the beginning, high tannins, they're going to last, you're going to get 20 years out of these.
Yeah.
So we'll put away, typically we've put away a couple of pallets, but we've been a small boutique winery, but we've gone into COVID and again, like I said, people have really started to appreciate local, they've appreciated handcrafting, they're appreciating boutique wineries over large, huge commercial-based ones. So we've had, in the last 6 months, we've had a huge increase in memberships as well. So we're really going into next year going, okay, a normal intake is this much, are we going to invest in this much, which means new barrels, it's a big investment and space, and do we need to expand? And there's a whole lot of considerations, but it's really exciting times because it feels really good to be valued for what we're doing as a small boutique winery, that people are really appreciating the heart and soul that the team put into it, that, going out, sourcing grapes, looking at it, building relationships with farmers over years. So it's exciting times ahead, really. I feel like as a community, there's a lot more community-based thinking in the whole of Australia, do you know what I mean? Which is such a positive sign.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I think that's very sustainable for businesses to have that. So it's an exciting time. But yeah, it's a little bit of like any business, Jason, and it's a bit of risk-taking and backing yourself and going, let's just do it, and having the confidence. All she goes, you can still you can sell it because it's good stuff.
Yeah, calculating that risk.
I don't know how this actually happens, Jace. I think just solved the riddle as I was just thinking and listening to you, because oak barrels expensive. The infrastructure is expensive.
Yeah,
huge. Like seriously expensive. So I reckon, because you guys must be a little bit crazy, because 2 to 3 years to be able to get your return on investment. A small business, that's daunting. Big business, no worries, right? You invest, you got the money. That's what happens, isn't it? You get around and you go, you know what? I'm not sure that we can do this. I'm not sure. Geez, that's a lot of money to outlay, and how we get through it.
You know what, Andy?
A few more of them. It'll just happen. It'll just happen. Don't worry about it. It'll just materialize.
Look, you know what it's like. It's with our partnership. So it's me and my husband, and then we've got my brother-in-law involved as well. But it's a real mixture of 3 different people thinking 3 different ways. Because I'm probably the more conservative person. and a more considered risk taker, whereas my husband's probably a dynamo salesman and he's a huge risk taker. And then we have the account that is always trying to look at very black and white, you know.
Yeah.
So combined, it kind of works. Do you know what I mean? Because we have the high risk taker in Frank, but then we have me, and we kind of just fly in the middle. And look, it's worked for us so far. We've been 25 years in business and had a so it's the combination works. I think it is that combination of different people's thinking and perspective, and being respectful of everyone's, and then bring all of that information and then going ahead and going forward.
Having a good team around you, by the sounds of things, Wendy, and a good mixture of characters in your business as well, So and the smarts to kind of allow those different characters to have their say is usually important too.
It's so true. It's just recognizing strengths in everyone and what they're good at, and going with it. And trust. At the end of the day, trust is a huge thing, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and is it so your husband and yourself and your brother-in-law, is that 25 years for you guys all together, or is that
Yeah. Me and my husband started our first business. And then probably about a few years into it, our brother-in-law invested into it because we needed cash flow and we had nothing and we didn't own anything and we needed something because the banks just laughed at us. So he very kindly, well, not kindly, very smartly invested in, well, he had confidence in us. So, and that's how, we continued on. So it worked out well. So and then ever since then, it's just been the three of us powering along.
And I was looking at a stat the other day. Less than 10% of 1% of businesses in the world get past 15 years. So congratulations. That's an amazing feat, and certainly a small business. You don't have as big a coffers as the big boys and girls in town often, and but what you do have in a small to medium business is often a little bit more passion and grit than others.
Yeah. Agility, quick to move. There is advantages to it, but we've done all right after. We have been broke a few times before that, but third time lucky we kept going and got
well, I mean, that's the entrepreneurial spirit, really, at the end of the day. And I don't think I've read any of these books without the entrepreneur in them having a moment in time or multiple moments in time where the chips were down and they make a comeback. And if you're passionate about what you do, then that's great. One of the interesting things which you said, your brother-in-law invested with you privately. That's one of the things I see in the market right now. Andy and I were chatting about this. Cash is trash right now. Cash is worthless, completely worthless. And there is, I don't know how much money in circulation. Andy, you could probably look that up and you'd know it. But, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars around the world now have said, well, if I leave it in the bank, Andy was even saying 4 or 5 countries now make you pay money to put money in the bank. How ludicrous is that, right? And so money's looking for a home, good opportunities. Even in my head, like I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I'm thinking, all right, Wendy, let's put a club together. Let's syndicate $5 million worth of wine buying. Let's go for it, mate. Let's double, triple down right now. Let's go. Because if you're going to get 200% return on that, like where can you do that sort of thing? And I love those ideas, and I know that I wouldn't be the only person with that concept when it comes to money and opportunity. And that's the part I love about being an entrepreneur is like when there's an opportunity, you can kind of, especially with someone like yourself, if you've got experience and you've got a story and whatever, you can weave that together. And money loves a good story, and ultimately you got to deliver. It does. And a Tesla and Amazon and those companies lost money for a decade, but the story that people fell in love with, you know, made those companies, you know, absolutely mad crazy, which is kind of cool. So I love that. So how many in your team now? How many in your business, and sort of give us a bit of an oversight of that.
Okay, so Capital Lighting and Living business has got probably about 28 employees.
Nice.
And then our winery, which is really my little baby, we've got 10, and then a couple of, roughly 10 teams. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, yep. A winemaker, assistant winemaker, a cellar door manager, marketing, and it's a really tight, small knit community here. We all work. Yeah, it really works on the passion, and it's a completely different industry, the wine industry, to our other business.
Yeah.
Because it's still relationship building. It's a different relationship. People are loving. Want to so much connect with me and Frank, but in the wine industry, it's really about connection, and that's what we love. I feel like we've found our friends and family here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's really, really nice. So that's what we love about it. So yeah, we're very happy. It was such a great decision to do that. Like, even though we often describe it like buying a boat, where you buy a boat. You have no idea what's ahead of you, the maintenance and so we kind of describe it like that. But,
like that. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Is it like the boat joke? It's like, how do you end up with a boat worth $1 million? You buy one for two?
Yeah, you put 2 million. Yes. That's the one. No, we've done all right. But any Andy, most we had somebody here the other day, one of our members who's an accountant, and she's saying to me, but how does it go? Like, I'd never recommend somebody does a winery, but it's, it's so much more than it's good. Like, it's passionate, it's fun, it's friendly, it's you've got a farm out there, it grows, it's you're dealing with, I don't know, natural, it's just a real life piece of wine. It's alive. So
you create it from nature, and I come from a building background, and I actually miss not building things for a living, and now I build them in my shed. So I build furniture and stuff like that, but creating something from nothing and then people enjoying it, there's nothing, it's so amazing. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. And we're putting it for here at the moment. Like, we're just trying to build experiences the whole time, and we're creating an environment that's picnic areas, and we really kind of say, our home is your home. If I could say it in Italian, I would, but I can't. But my husband can. But that's sort of our theme. Like, our home is your home. So we're really trying to create that.
Is that it?
Look at you, Andy.
Espanol.
Yeah. That's what, so, and I think it's paying off. I think, we bought the company and a bit of love and nurture. And I always think of Kerwin and the plants, you know what I mean? Where the plant that you nurture and the plant that you don't, and one dies and the other one thrives. So
yeah,
we go out there and talk to those vines every opportunity, and they're doing well. But the team in general, we're doing okay. So we're happy.
That's great. I love it. And so through COVID for you guys, did you have to sort of do any sort of real pivoting? Like you were talking about, the sort of the back catalogue started to become more valuable and stuff like that. What was, because we do have a few business owners sort of dialing in. So what was any tips or feedback for you guys?
Well, we had to pivot really quickly. We had to because we had the same thing. We had to shut the cellar door. And we went into it with, I really believe the fact that we had our planned days and we had cemented our purpose, and our purpose was to connect and to create memorable experiences, connection over isolation. So how do we touch our community more often and create a connection? it enabled us just to have an idea of like, this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, straight away we went into doing lives on Friday as well. Back in March, we did virtual dinner parties. We've done, so many different things. Our virtual dinner party, we had 300 people live.
On Zoom or something?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So it was and everyone was into it. So, so we just had to, we went into it, we understand what our purpose was. So, connect, communicate, and we just actively thought about how can we do that through this time. We just used social media. We used any platform that we could come across, and we tried to do that. And it paid off. And then we had to create, because we couldn't move it. We couldn't have anybody tasting inside because we didn't have enough space. We straight away went into creating outdoor tasting, and we thought again experiences, like we want to create an experience, a memorable experience. So that was one of the things. We just got to back ourselves, and we got musicians in, we got a food van in. So we tried to think about, well, if we say we want to create an experience, what does an experience feel like? What does it mean to us?
Yeah.
We thought, well, the experience is, so we've had live music Friday, Saturday, Sundays. We've got a food van. We just started, like our creative juices just went wild. We started doing tasting menus, different options. Like we do a Chardonnay flight, old school, new school, right across the thing. So we just every week tried to create something to encourage people to come, basically. Because as soon as we opened up, but I think in the whole of Hunter, really, it's just boomed. Like we've just had so many visitors.
Yeah.
So it's been good. But then we had to find new staff, and that was hard. It was really hard, but we've finally found some great people, and we're settling in. We've got Ziggy Fletcher is working with us.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Look out.
So she was an awesome find. So she just contacted us through the K2 group and said, I'm looking for work. And I said, oh my God, we're looking for people. Come on in. And she's a dynamo, of course, because you can imagine she's fantastic. And we've got a new cellar door manager. But it was stressful. We had lots of tension in our team as well. I don't know how you guys went, but
over COVID, sort of the worry about their safety. Yeah, totally.
Huge. When we started having crowds come in, it was they just wanted to shut the doors again, because we had 8 weeks of the gate closed, and we were still operating behind the scenes. We didn't have to see anyone. The doors were shut. We felt
when you just going into that, because you sort of you touched on it, but I'd love to actually go a little bit deeper into going into that zone, because what you've done and your theme of connection, or your values of connection and creating a memorable experience. For those people who aren't small business owners out there, I think that this is incredibly important to listen to, and to listen to what you're about to tell us. But for those who are, will either really get this, but everybody should understand, like, it's people like you, it's people like Jace, that throughout these periods of time step things up a notch, whether it's creative, whether it's time in the business, whether it's strategy and innovation, because literally COVID came, we didn't know how long it was there for. You didn't know it was going to be 4 weeks. It could have been 50 for all you knew. So, I just want to commend you. 300 people on a dinner at Zoom, and I'm assuming that you would never have Zoomed anybody in your life from that perspective in the business. And to be able to create that community online.
We actually used Facebook Live. We didn't actually use Zoom, but it's the same thing. It was just, we just had so much positive feedback and people joining in, and it was really incredible. And a local chef came and cooked the food, and so he was promoting going live, and it was fantastic. But Andy,
take us through that thought pattern. Take us through that thought pattern. It landed, bang. There was this thing called COVID. It was around. you probably weren't worried about it. You might have been a little bit. We went to a session that a lot, brought everyone's attention to it very early in the piece. But then when it happened, take us through just that moment and then the next 2 weeks through that.
I think it took us a whole 5 minutes to go, shit, let's turn, and we turned left. So if there was an area to go, well, there's no thinking about this anymore, because we'd been talking about things forever, but just so many roadblocks. Like, I don't even know what the roadblocks were. And then it was just like, we're doing it. And we just had to go, like, just turn left, there's fear, let's go towards it. And we just have to do it. And I think we just had this, and again, I sort of talk about me and my husband, like, but there's that sort of sense of fearlessness, like, let's just not even think about COVID. We just know what we have to do. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. And how do we operate? Like, so it's not being naive and pretending it doesn't exist. But in another way, it's like we have to keep moving forward. Let's just pretend it doesn't exist. How are we going to create sales in this new world? And what are we going to do? And how are we going to keep everyone employed? And for us, that was really meaningful, because in both our businesses, these people have been with us from, they trust us. Do you know what I mean? They trust us to, and so for us, it's really, really meaningful. And so we don't take that lightly, and we have to move. We have to go this way. We've got to do this. Let's do that. And we just did everything we could really quickly. And but yeah, as quickly as we could, and just keep going forward. But there was a lot of talking with the team, lots of ups and downs. As as business owners, sometimes we move so quickly. The people, our team, can get a bit like,
you can leave them behind, or they get scared, right? Yeah.
We're going left.
We've got this.
Hang on a minute, we're still sitting in right. But, thank goodness. Yeah, really, it was, So that's a good lesson to us as well, to pause sometimes and let everyone catch up a little bit.
Yeah. Great lesson.
But it's a little pause,
so
but you can't pause too much, because you have to keep pushing. You got to keep moving them. Come on. So,
what was the top fear, or maybe the top 2 fears, that you weren't doing things before because there was a fear there, whatever it was, but then when COVID came, you just went, nah, we just got to do it?
What was the fear? I don't know. I think just getting in front of the camera, seriously, myself, it was just getting in front of the camera. And then I just went, I have to do it. I have to talk to my members. I have to tell them what's happening. And I just sat at home, and I got my son I said, you just hold the camera and I'm going to talk. And we just did it. And that's just where it started. And as a business owner, the biggest lesson for me was that I had to lead the way. I couldn't expect other people to be doing, and that's what I think I was doing before. I was kind of saying to people, the winemaker, the seller, come on, they want to hear from you. They want to hear from you. In the end, they want to hear from me. You know what I mean? And so that was a really big lesson. And they do love hearing from them, because they talk that's fantastic. But I just had to step into that. And then my team, again, built that trust, because I did it, so they did it. And we did it together. Come on, we'll do it together. And we're all a bit, scared, but we just did it. It's kind of cute, like, on this, because you can forget that anyone's listening, don't you think? I hope my light just went out on me. Sorry.
No,
I hope I'm not too dark.
No, you're looking good. Good lighting there. No, you're dead right, Wendy. Because often, there's these things. Andy and I have said it a few times. It's a Winston Churchill quote. You never waste a good crisis. And it's a good crisis. It gives you an excuse to do the things that you've been making excuses for. I can't get on camera. I can't do this. I can't do that. And you just do it, and you're like, what was I carrying on about? It's just, and then everyone loves it. Yeah.
Seriously,
it's one of those age-old things, isn't it? That everybody wants to talk with the technician. They want to know the owner. And when I mean know the owner, I don't mean from the perspective of, knowing being part of the in crowd, but they want to know the person that created it, you know, and not just the technician that feels a part of it. People want to know the story. And look, our journey is very, very, very similar as well. Jason and I work with so many different business owners, and obviously we know it through our community as well. And again, I want to just say what you've done is awesome, is because I know how much courage it takes to all of a sudden just switch the live button on and just start yabbering away and just making mistakes in front of anybody and everyone who will listen, and then, you know, thousands of people. And it's very, very exposing. And when you're doing that in a period of time where you're going, well, we're just trying. It's not like you're going live talking about something that you do day in, day out, that you've done every single day, and you just keep doing it and you know it backwards. You're literally going out there, you're going live, going, I fucking hope this works. We've never done this before, but we're just going to try it. And it's the most vulnerable you can be. And there's that choice of whether you take that option and take the blue pill or the red pill. And it's like, we put the foot down, or we stall and we take the foot off. And I reckon that there was 50-50 in Australian businesses, 50 that took the foot off and stalled, and 50 that, maybe it's not even 50%. But then was that thing that lit the team up? Watching you kind of just go out there and go, holy shit, like, look at Wendy. Like, she's like, somebody pulled out a camera, she hides behind a tree, now she's doing a live.
You know what I think lit the team up is when some of the big, like we had Brian McGuigan, which is like, I don't know if you know Brian McGuigan, but like he was a world winemaker. He's like the god of the Hunter Valley. Like he's such a community worker and so instrumental in the wine industry. And you know, he came and talked at one of our lives, spent 2 hours with our members talking about the history and the evolution of Hunter Valley. So before we started working with the community, because again, we wanted to talk connections, so we really participated in going to community meetings, trying to be a part of the community a lot more. But I think for the team, when, you know, even our cellar door master, you know, Tulloch Wines said to him, he was there looking for a job, and he said, why don't you go talk to Sellers Creek Wines? They're really doing some great stuff down there. And when, you know, when they're walking around, they're saying, oh, you guys are doing great. Or, you know, we'll be walking around, my battery's going to run out. I hope I don't disappear on you. If I do, bye. But, you know, but you know, I think for them, when they started seeing that we're being recognised a little bit and being acknowledged that we're a great little winery and people are coming to our cellar door because, you know, whoever said go down to Saddlers because, you know, so for them being recognised with their peers has been really meaningful.
Yeah.
And we've worked hard to do that, and we've had.
Oh, Andy. Oh, dear.
Look at that. You're right in the crosshairs, mate. Look at that.
Mate.
Somebody got their bullseye on you, brother.
Well, there you go. There's the idea of having a little bit of technology conversations go astray, but it was great to chat with Wendy, and she's dropped out right now, folks. But we thought it'd be great to bring Wendy on. Not only has she sponsored Wine and Wisdom, some amazing wines, but she's also an amazing
Shardy at the moment, mate. And for those Shardy drinkers out there, I lost the taste of Chardonnay after they turned to Cabernet, and they over-oaked it for many years. But now there's these beautiful varieties coming back. For those of you who love your Burgundy style, this is not quite like a normal big buttery Australian one. It's almost got that little bit of finesse of a Sauterne or a good Chablis, a little bit bolder than it, but it's a cracker. It's Saddlers Creek Hunter Valley Chardonnay 2018. So I think it was from the good vintage that she was talking about. And mate, I've had the the luxury, as have you, but I've been drinking mine out of glass cups, or not glass cups, rather wine glasses, glass ones, not plastic ones. And mate, I said it to Wendy as well. I said, look,
Wendy's
really
dialing back in, Andy. Let me see what I can do here. Wendy's back. How do we go, Wendy? Let's hello. I'll see if we can put us back in here. All right. I think we've had some technical difficulties, but there we go.
Sorry, I did mention my guru was off sick, didn't I? The one that tells me to plug in my laptop. But anyway, sorry about that, guys.
Nah, all good, Wendy. We were attempting to give your wines a decent plug, and we've actually really enjoyed them the last few weeks. So we do really appreciate you sending them through. We've had a great time having a few drinks. I was chatting with, I was saying a few people the other day. Actually, the day your wines arrived was 4 weeks ago, Wine and Wisdom. And I missed lunch. I didn't eat lunch on Friday, and disaster. So I quickly drank a glass of wine and slurred my way through an hour of Wine and Wisdom. It was absolutely terrible, but the wine was excellent. It was so good. I drank it fast. So
Good on you.
Yeah.
You need to get some practice in, obviously, Jason.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit of a teetotaler, Wendy. I'm a bit of a teetotaler. I do like a nice glass of wine, but it's not something that I can handle a lot of. But I really have enjoyed the wines that you've sent through, so I really appreciate it. But
I'm glad.
Yeah. No, we're glad that you could pop back in because the timing's been pretty good, actually. We're almost coming to an end to today, but really appreciate you coming on, and fantastic to hear that your passion and planning and your team have really been the wind beneath the wings of where you guys are now and where you want to go. It's exciting as business owners have a moment in time where you see your whole team rally, and then you step into a new level of leadership as well, which is amazing. So I'm quite sure that's going to catapult you guys into something extraordinary in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years with your BHAG. So, mate, really appreciate you coming on today, and appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
Guys.
Awesome. All right. Well, one last thing to do, Andy, is play the cheers. Cheers. There it is.
Cheers. Cheers.
Chings. There you go. And we'll do the do.
Cheers,
all right.
Guys.
All right.
You've got a Chardonnay glass, Andy. Love it. I'll have one next time.
Thank you, Wendy.
What are you drinking your Cabernet out of? We'll have to get Jason some glasses.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've got plastic glasses. I just don't like. I don't like the thought of breaking a glass. I like that they bounce. Anyway, awesome. Yeah, see if you can fix that. All right, gang. Well, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Wendy. Fantastic. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a weekend.
And, adios.